If you're looking to start an Etsy store to sell your 3D printed models, avoiding failure starts with knowledge. I've been selling 3D models on Etsy for the past 4 years, and today I'm talking about 5 expenses that you need to have a handle on if you want to find success selling your models on Etsy. Stick with me to the end and I will share some of my best tips to use Etsy ads to boost your sales. Hey everyone, if we haven't met, my name is Sam. I run a 3D print farm underneath my garage. That farm generates me 6 figures in annual revenue. I have over 9,000 sales and I am a top 1% seller on Etsy. These are the 5 expenses I wish I would have had a handle on sooner when I was starting my Etsy shop and my journey into 3D printing. You can't have a print farm without 3D printers, so obviously one of our first expenses that we're going to talk about is the actual expense of the 3D printers themselves. Your printers will probably be your largest single transaction cost. However, if you find success and you sell on Etsy for any length of time, over time, your other costs cumulatively will end up being way more than your single printer cost will be. When it comes to printers themselves and the cost of them, you kind of get what you pay for here. When I first started out, I had a bunch of Creality machines. I then moved to Prusa machines, and now I almost exclusively run Bamboo Labs printers in my print farm. When I was running Creality machines, and even when I was running Prusa machines too, I constantly had at least one printer that was down at all times due to repairs needed on it. I've exclusively been running Bamboo Labs now for about the last year, and outside of routine nozzle changes and cleaning the lead screws, I've had 0 breakdowns in the last 12 months. At the end of the day though, these are machines, and like any industry that uses machines, you will need to account for breakdowns and repairs and maintenance when needed. But just keep in mind, the frequency of those repairs and maintenance needs are going to be very much dependent on the quality machine you buy to start with. And fortunately or unfortunately, usually the price of the machine has a direct correlation to the quality of the machine. The second expense you want to have a handle on, and it's an expense that you are going to deal with forever while running your 3D print farm, is the filament cost. This may be counterintuitive, but I think a lot of beginners when starting out spend way too much time focusing on the cost of the filament and trying to negotiate and coordinate bulk discounts for their filament when their time could be spent and should be spent elsewhere. When you're just starting out with your Etsy shop and your 3D print farm, spending time worrying about bulk discounts is kind of like the guy who has a new business idea, and before he gets any clients, before he verifies that people want what he's selling, the first thing he does is get 1,000 business cards made that says CEO on them. I'm not saying never worry about filament costs. What I am saying though is let's walk before we run. In the beginning, we need to be focusing on getting a shop that actually produces sales. Focus on your pictures, focus on your SEO, focus on making products that people actually want to buy. Trust me, there will be time to worry about filament costs and bulk discounts and stressing about if I can buy a pallet, if I can't buy a pallet. All that will come, but it's not when you're first starting out. Our third expense is packaging and shipping costs. There's no really way around it, it just overall sucks. For a lot of the products you're gonna sell, the cost of the box, the packaging material for in the box, will end up being more than the cost of the plastic itself. Here are some tips I found work well though to keep those costs in check best we can. We don't offer free shipping on any single item. For a customer to get free shipping at our shop, they have to order at least $35 worth of goods to then qualify for free shipping. I've looked at a lot of different shops on Etsy in a lot of different categories. All the big sellers require their buyers to pay for shipping. Our second tip is to look local for your supplier. I used to buy all my boxes from Uline. Before them, I bought from a company out in California, and now I buy all my shipping supplies from a warehouse that's about 2 minutes from my house. They not only beat Uline prices, but they're local to me, so in a hurry, I can actually go pick up my products if I don't want to wait for shipping. Outside of the cost savings I have with them, it's also nice just to have somebody local. I can pick up the phone, they gave me a sales rep, so lots of times when I need a new type of packing material box, I can call my sales rep and say, hey, I need a box that can fit something this big by this big by this big. They'll do all the legwork. He'll send me an email with 3 or 4 options. I can pick the one I want, and I got my boxes coming. I highly recommend you look around. Every company needs shipping materials, so there is a ton of companies that support that industry, and more than likely there is a company local to you that has a warehouse full of boxes, full of packaging materials that they can probably do a pretty good price on. I know depending on where you look, there can be a lot of disagreement around advertising, especially using Etsy ads. I've been selling on Etsy for about the last 4 years, and I have been using ads in some fashion the entire time. I am a believer in ads, mostly because I am a believer in business best practices. And according to the United States Small Business Association, most e-commerce websites dedicate 10 to 15% of their gross revenue to ad spend. That doesn't mean we should be foolish with our ad spend. Here's some things I've figured out by using Etsy ads for the last 4 years. You should not advertise every listing in your shop. That being said, every new listing I post in my shop, I do advertise for at least 2 to 4 weeks. For ads to be a real benefit to your shop, your ROI needs to be at least 3x. Meaning if you spend $1 advertising an item, that dollar needs to generate you $3 back in revenue. Anything lower than that, after you total up all your other cost of goods, best case scenario, you're breaking even. Worst case, you're probably losing money in the long run. In the end, I think you want to be advertising about 20% of your shop listings. This holds true to the 80-20 rule that says 20% of your shop listings are going to generate you 80% of your revenue. The reason I run ads on all of my listings to start with, though, is because I want to try to find which listing is going to fall into that 20% category. In the end, I try to keep my ad spend at 10 to 15% of my total shop revenue. Important thing to note, it is total shop revenue. It is not the revenue just from the ads. You need to look at your ad spend in relation to your total shop revenue. The final expense we need to talk about is platform fees. You know they suck, I know they suck, but we have to deal with them. I know a lot of people have claimed to have left Etsy over the years because of the platform fees. That's great if their business can support them being off of Etsy. I take a really simple approach to this though. If I wasn't on Etsy, I wouldn't have 90% of the sales I have. So because of that, the idea of leaving Etsy is a bit of a non-starter for me. So I do what every business does, and I build this cost in to the cost of my products. And I don't really think about it again. Those 5 costs will not be the only 5 costs associated with your 3D print farm and Etsy shop. Like every business, you're gonna have other overhead things to deal with. However, if you can get those 5 things dialed in and get a real handle on them, it'll set you up to be on your way for a profitable print farm. For any of these expenses to even matter, you have to have listings that get sales. In my last video, I pulled back the curtain on my exact Etsy listing process. If you are interested in hearing about the strategies I use every day to create Etsy bestsellers, check that video out here. I'll see you over there.